9th Standard English, Unit 3 Supplementary, Earthquake, written by M.S. Mahadevan. So I'll just read out and show to you, and it is very easy only. I think you can understand better. Greetings, traveler. You looked tired and cold. Are you stranger to these paths waiting for the bus to Badrinath? Perhaps you are a pilgrim or a visitor to the Valley of Flowers. Anyway, whoever you are, come with me. Wait at my tea shop. It is just past behind in the road. As you can see, I am crazy carrying this can of milk to the shop. In 10 minutes, I will have a fire going. While you warm yourself, I will prepare for you the best cup of tea in all Garwell. It will chase away the pinched blue look from your face. Here we are. Welcome to my humble roadside tea shop. Make yourself comfortable on this wooden bench. It looks rickety, but it will hold your weight. My name, sir, I am called Bridgie. I am 17 years old. I started the tea shop 2 years ago. Before that, I worked in a roadside shop outside Panipat. The heat crowded, the pollution, it was all too much. I had saved most of my earnings. I came back, and with a little help I started the shop. By the God's grace, it provides me a decent enough livelihood. Here your tea is ready. Strong steep flavored with cardamom. Enjoy it, sir. While I get on with my chorus, this is my daily routine. At sunset, I will shut my shop and walk back to 3 miles to my dwelling on the hillside. The name of my village. It was my village, the village of my ancestors. It is no more. Malti is gone. What happened to my village? It was 4 years ago, in the month of October, one night, the earth quaked. Yes, tremors are common in these parts. The snow may seem eternal, the Himalayas may look solid, but the truth is, deep down, they are unstable. We who live here are accustomed to tremors. But what happened at that night was more than that. It was terrible earthquake. Its effects were felt as far away as Delhi and Lucknow. Can you imagine the devastations at the heart of the earthquake? The epicenter was in a valley not far from here. There were 670 villages in the valley. 602 were destroyed. The earthquake lasted less than 5 minutes, time enough to set these centuries old mountains crashing, to reduce our village to rumble, to stuff out hundreds of lives. It was cheap chance that I was away that night. I had to go on Pori to buy my school books. I stayed the night at my uncle's house. We felt the tremors. We ran out into the open. Again and again, the tremors came. We spent the entire night outside. Puri lived through the night. Malti did not. For the living, the nightmare began at daybreak when the news trickled in of the large-scale devastation. There was dozens of landslides, huge boulders thrown haphazardly across motorable tracks and roads. Precious time was spent in blasting the rockers and clearing the way for army rescue teams. It was all of 4 days before help arrived for Multi. I was among the first to reach the village. My uncle accompanied me. We feared the worst, but nothing had prepared us for what we saw. Every single house, every wall, every roof had flattened. Stone, rumble, and dust were that remained. Our house was a two-storied stone building with a slate roof. My great-grandfather had built the house. We were a small family. My grandfather had died after an illness just 14 months ago. My father had died after an illness just 14 months ago. My mother took care of us. We were 3 children. I was the oldest. My brother Neelu was 10, Buli was 2 years old, sister was a baby of my family. Grandmother lived with us. When the soldiers began to clear the debris, my uncle led me away. I was in a complete daze, too numb to feel anything. The soldiers had set up a makeshift camp. Someone gave me tea and biscuit. I don't know how long I was there. Suddenly, it was evening and uncle was standing beside me. They had taken the bodies into the river bank. They said gently, "Come, you must perform the last rites before sunset. Tomorrow we'll go back to Pori." I had last seen my family and leaving for Pori. They stood at the doorway and waved. Ma, Grandma, Neelu, and Buli. That is the way I will always remember them, and smiling wave at me. Not as a white, stouter, lifeless figures I saw. Buli, she was not there. They have not found her. My uncle said, "The wild animals, Bridge don't look like that. She is dead." "But we must find her," I shouted. "Bridge, get a grip on yourself," uncle pleaded. But I was beyond reasoning. I ran back to the village, to the spot where my house had stood. There was still so much debris. I scrambled around, shifting the earth and stones. Howling, I was on my knees, searching, crying, and searching. "Boy, it is no use," a voice said, and looked up. The speaker was the army officer who had supervised the relief operation. "There is no one alive there," he said. "Whom are you looking for?" "My sister, sir," I said, fighting to control my eyes. "All I want to give her a proper cremation." I stopped, conscious that I was babbling. I could see that he was bone tired. He looked as if he had slept for days. His uniform was covered with dust, his face was grimy. But through all the dust and grim, I saw that his eyes were kind. "My men had been on their feet for days," he softly said, as if talking to himself. "They had done all they could there. Tomorrow at daybreak we go to another village just like this, then another." He looked away at the sun setting behind the peaks. Down in the valley, the pyres burnt, row upon row. The officer muttered something, shook his head, and turned away. The terrible despair engulfed me. I lay there among the ruins of my house and cried. 10 minutes later, the officer was back. With him were three soldiers armed with spades and crowbars. Without a word, the men began removing the debris. They labored doggedly. When it was completely dark, someone brought a few lit Petromax lamp. 2 hours later, a soldier called out, "Sir." He stood in the middle of a small hollow. The wall had caved it at that spot. I recognized a part of a door, beneath it a small foot. Feverishly, the soldier began to clear the hollow. Then they lifted the door. "She is alive," someone said. It was a miracle. She had been buried under the debris for 116 hours. She had survived the earthquake and the cold nights and the wild animals. The rag sheet went up, and the soldier wrapped her in a warm blanket and carried her to the tent where a makeshift hospital and she had been set up. Buli lived. The next day, I went to thank the army officer, but he was gone. I did not even know his name. My sister and I went on to live with my uncle. Soon after, I got a job at a dhaba near Panipat. Buli stayed back. She started going to school. I waited on me that I never thanked that army officer. I hoped that one day I would run into him again. Every time I saw an army officer, and I hoped it was him. For months, I could search for his face in every crowded, and one day I did find him. It was late on winter's night. A truck stopped at the shop. A man got out. He looked familiar. When he stepped into the light, I saw that it was not him, just one who bore a strong resemblance. The man was tired. He asked a cup of tea, and I served him. "Sir," I felt the strange lightness, this sense of joy. When the man offered to pay, I did not take money. The next day, it happened again. Every day, I could see someone, a complete stranger, a tired traveler, who reminded me of that officer. It was as if he was everywhere. and every time I served him tea, I felt a surge of sheer joy. A month later, I quit my job at the shop and returned to those mountains. The shop owner was quite relieved. He had no use for waiter who kept forgetting to present the bill to the customer. Now I am on my own and I am at peace. Here is your bus, sir. No, no, no money. You were tired. All I offered you was a cup of tea. Maybe the best tea in all Garwell. May not be. But I'm happy I could do you small service. Wish you safe journey, sir. May God be with you.